Welcome everybody to our live stream here on lichess and Twitch. International Master Will Paschall, aka Sladgy, here on lichess. What's up, guys? We're doing some game analysis and opening analysis today. A little bit of study time. What's up, Masturbate? Alright, in honor of you being a VIP, decided to make we made today's study. How did you know today's study was Aaron Nimzovich? How did you know that? Asteroid has some kind of secret power. He can predict the future of chess. Chess studies. So we're going to start with some Nimzovich. Later we're going to get to some opening analysis yet to be determined. What's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to rainy Budapest, Hungary. We're in the middle of the rainy season, apparently. Monsoon season in February. Alright. Retro game study. This is Nimzovich versus Schliemann. Can you guys see that at the bottom? I guess not. You cannot see that. So I'm going to change the pawn to text so everybody can see what we're looking at here. Properties. Why does everybody's name have to be so long? Nimzovich. I'm gonna verse spiel. Alright. Nimzovich versus Schliemann. There's different ways to spell Nimzovich. It's usually like Nimzovich with a W. It's technically Russian/Latvian name. You can't really spell it right or wrong in English, I guess. Nimzovich versus Schliemann, it's onto the board there, but I'm going to leave it like that. Big deal. Hold on a second. We'll be right back. You're Nimzovich without even reading his books. I eventually did get my system. Someone left it to me when they didn't have a place to keep their chess books. So I actually own a copy of my system. Though I never studied it. Hypermodern Chess was a good book. An early book I got, one of my first probably 10 books. So it's not true I didn't study Nimzovich, but I didn't study his books. This is a book that I did study, that I never fully appreciated as much as I should have, probably at the time when I was a beginner. Alright, we're going to get started here with this game. Nimzovich versus Schliemann. This is from their match. It's called MCO Honeyburger. It's a little out of date now. But it was very good at the time. Although I wasn't around in 1965, but close enough. So 4 knights. Alright. Personally, I think the Scotch is interesting. You're opening the game right away. But the most critical line here, the only critical line, is knight takes c6. I don't think that white, objectively can get anything with this line, even though it's still played today sometimes. I just don't think that white gets enough. This pin with bishop b4 is just too easy for black to get kind of like quick development. So this just isn't quite enough for white to really play for an edge. I think he has better chances in the regular Scotch. I think most strong players would agree. Anyway, so bishop b4, white is playing Nimzovich, black is Schliemann. Knight takes c6 here is like forced. This is a problematic position. There's pressure on the e4 pawn. So white doesn't have a good way to protect the pawn. f3 is weakening. Bishop d3 drops a knight. Defending with the queen is rather awkward. I don't know that there's a way to sacrifice a pawn here. What would possess that guy to challenge me to 10-0 King of the Hill? You just go around like randomly challenging title players to play 10-0 King of the Hill? That's bizarre. Alright. Bishop d2 drops a piece. I'm not frozen, I'm just thinking. It's the same thing, basically. This position always kind of bugged me, you know, you'd think there'd be another move. It looks like it's possible to maybe, like, sacrifice a pawn. Bishop c4. I lost to this guy once, Alexei Holmston from Finland. Alright, that's it. Got your attention. I'm just going to turn off challenges. Alright, you got attention. Let's turn off the challenges. Because we'll get that constantly since I'm streaming. I guess. I got to learn to do this. Preferences. Privacy. Never. Only friends. Alrighty then. Goodbye. Bishop c4 is interesting. I guess you could play this. Is taking this pawn just bad? I'd never looked at this. But anyway, this is not the point. Okay, we're playing the main line. Knight takes c6. This is white's best move. Now, if black were to take back with the pawn, we remain with a very strong pawn on e4. Any kind of endgame like this, I think that white is just better. Unbelievably, this was played. This is unbelievable. Lenderman played this and won a game against the guy. I can't imagine how could anyone with white like lose this position. That's unbelievable. Seriously. It's incomprehensible to me that Alex Lenderman would play this position with black and white would actually, a grandmaster would lose. I mean, how can you be a grandmaster and like lose this position with white with a strong pawn on e4, black's king trapped in the center? It's unbelievable. What is black even thinking? It's such a bad idea. Alright, b takes c6. And now white needs another good move. Unfortunately, this is why I don't really recommend this line. But in those days, it was relatively respected. Rarely played today. I think the 4-knight Scotch. Or Scotch 4 knights. We have to play bishop d3. It doesn't seem like there's a good alternative. Now, black played d5. That's the main move. You can also castle. And d6 is kind of passive. So d5, e takes d, and now there's an interesting newer move here. I don't know when this was invented. Probably not really new. It's probably been around for a long time, but no one paid a lot of attention to it. Black can just castle here. If you analyze this with a computer, maybe this is just a way for white to go wrong, essentially. If you try to take this pawn on c6, you lose the initiative. Could be dangerous, but I don't think the variation really has any independent value. You know, ultimately it will just transpose to the normal line. You might get someone fishing with pawn takes pawn, where black can try to play for a development advantage. I guess bishop g4. Anyway, the point is to check this game. This is game 1 from Spielman versus Nimzovich versus Spielman, their match. And this game was played 1905. Nimzovich was born in the late 1800s, but he wasn't really strong enough to play tournament chess until the early 1900s. And this, I guess, was his first match against a strong player, against Spielman. So we have e takes d5, c takes d5, castles. Castles, both sides get off the open line, and then the starting position. Standard starting position for the four-knight Scotch, which Nimzovich did like to play. Not only this game, I've seen others. Now he plays bishop g5, the main move. I'm not sure if he ever played queen f3. That's an alternative. Very solid move for white. But bishop g5 is main. The pin is kind of annoying and hard to get out of. Aspirate, if you mention that again, I'm going to have to temporarily time out your VIP. We don't talk about Stafford Gambit or other unsound openings. Otherwise, promote unsound chess streamers. Alright, what's up, guys? Welcome everyone to the stream. Am I on lichess? Welcome, good morning. Good morning. Hanish Burger. Burger. We're going to do some Nimzovich study here and then some opening study a little later on. Thinking is good for you. So in the pin, c6. This is a strong pawn. What do you guys think about this pawn? They're not really hanging pawns. I mean, technically the hanging pawn should be on like two open files like this. Since the c file isn't open for white, I would be hesitant to call this hanging pawns. The pawn on d5 is extremely strong. And not just from a defensive standpoint, you know. This pawn is the reason why black is at least equal here. Or equal here. Otherwise, he would be behind in development. We could say he's worse because he has 3 islands. You know, black is worse structurally because he has 3 islands against white's 2. White has 4 pieces or 3 pieces developed to 2. But why is black okay? Because this pawn on d5 is so strong. Look at it's like taking away the e4 square, c4 square. It gives black maneuvers like queen d6, bishop c7, and playing for mate on h2, for example. Space of giving a sheltered square to the black queen at d6. It would be a different story. Like if this e pawn was on e2, you know, white had maybe more frontal pressure on both hanging pawns. But Nimzovich knows how to play these types of positions strategically. I know another game where he actually uses the lever c4. So this is part of his plan now. He plays knight e2. The idea of playing c4 breaking the enemy pawn chain, and this is part of Nimzovich's theory. In chess, he talks about the blockade. First plan would be to blockade that pawn on d5, immobilize it. And now Schliemann goes very aggressive with g5. And you can see like almost no one has the guts to play this move. h6 is one thing, slightly weakening black's kingside. But now no one plays g5 here. Radically weakening the black king side. It's hard to recommend this. Look at the king side. h6 is unprotected. This diagonal is weak. Even f6 is slightly weakened. e5 is weak. The question is, can white get in there to take advantage of it? I mean, it's possible he could break with f4, h4. Possible. Although h4 wouldn't really do anything. We don't have any way to use the h file. c3 and queen c2. Okay, so c3, bishop c2, and maybe queen d3. The problem is, Honigberger, when you do something like c3 and queen c2, it's sort of like a dumb battery. Okay, you don't really want to put your queen. It's not ideal to have your queen behind the bishop. Of course, if you have it in front of the bishop, you're threatening mates sometimes on h7. So you're on the dumb end of the battery when you go queen c2. A lot of people think this is a good thing, but it's not that effective. Maybe it's solid for white, and you could play something like queen c2, bishop d3, f5. But I'm not that excited about it. Still, it's a reasonable way to develop. Yeah, it's like a Caro-Kann. Queen c7, bishop d6 in the Caro-Kann with black. It's solid. But I would prefer to put my queen on d3. Just like black would have liked to have put his queen on d6. And by the way, like, if you think about it, what's our main move here for black? So after knight e2, even today, h6 is still the main move. Black could try other moves. Rook e8, queen d6, breaking the pin. This is not unreasonable. You get out of the pin. This is protected. You can play something like bishop a5, bishop c7. I think that's interesting. The London system, yeah. The problem is weak players put their queen on c2 in the London system. That's not a good... It's a typical example. You don't want to put your queen on c2 in general in queen pawn games, because black has play along the c file. This is different though. You know, black doesn't have like a half open c file necessarily. It's more like the Caro-Kann. Bishop h4, g5. So black weakens himself and then plays knight e4. What do we do? See, this is interesting because in another game I know that Nimzovich played, he uses this break with c4. Not in the same exact position, but the idea is strong. The problem is black is threatening f5, f4, winning a piece. And a lot of people would probably take this, but I'm concerned about this diagonal here. Our white squares are very weak. And there's still the problem of f5, f4. So there's no easy solution to this position. I mean, if you play f3, for example, check, king h1, knight takes bishop, knight takes. Now black has a very strong unopposed dark square bishop. I don't like it. Maybe white's okay here, but that's the maximum. I don't think that white can be better. Equal according to the engine. This I don't like. I think that black is probably better after this. Peter disagrees. Interesting. Well, at least momentarily. So the engine actually thinks this is okay for white. I'm also not enthused though. I don't like this diagonal. I can understand why he didn't play that. So he plays this. Although this is also a possibility. There's this move. That's the problem. Well, Scared Knight is right. Like, that's the main line. Queen f3. But Nimzovich showed affinity for this. He has other games where he played knight e2, either now or later, but he's also played with queen f3. He has another famous game with that. But the problem with the position is that if you think about the position not in terms of theory, Scared Knight, but in terms of ideas, it's a good thing. Like, this knight is very badly placed. It's dominated by the pawn on d5. It's particularly dominated by the pawn on d5. It has nowhere to go. Plus, you need the c-pawn to undermine black structure. This is the strongest point in black's position. d5 is very, very strong. Queen f3 is okay, but honestly, I don't think it's that promising. I don't think it's really better than knight e2, honestly. The queen ends up exposed here, too. This pin is overrated. You know, it's very possible that Nimzovich is actually right. Like, this might actually be a better move than queen f3. I'm not really sure. I don't think that white can get an advantage in any case, honestly. This is not... The point isn't to study this as an opening, really. I'm getting a little bit too far afield. I just want to show Nimzovich's games. But I'm the first person in the world that's going to say that white cannot get an advantage in the four-knight Scotch. Do not play this if you expect to try to play for an advantage. It's not as good as the normal Scotch. Definitely. Because of this pawn on d5. Black has such a strong pawn on d5. Anyway, it's an interesting struggle. I don't think knight e2 is bad. g5 is bad. It's weakening. So now he plays c3, bishop c5, and queen a4. This is a surprising move. But we've got a double attack. Like, if we play Honigberger's sort of idea with queen c2, that's nice and everything, but it's slow. You know, so black has time to play f5. And now what are we going to do? There are threats of f4. We can't move our f-pawn. Counterplay here may take too long. You know, I don't really know if Schliemann had... I don't know if Nimzovich, you know, had theoretical knowledge that he had played this prior to this or not. This is one of his earlier games, by the way. This is in 1905. He only lived to 48. He died of pneumonia at a very ripe age of, not so ripe age of 48. So not a long career. Queen a4. Double attacking. Don't bring the queen out early. Alright, so what about black? What can black try to go for it here with f5 right away? I mean, that would be my first question. That's our biggest threat. The problem is queen takes c6 and the rook is hanging and there's no rook b8. And there's nowhere to put the bishop. Every single square is controlled. So I guess black would have to like sack the rook or something like that. This is a disaster. I mean, everything's hanging. This is hanging. You can play this and then the bishop's hanging. So it's a pretty serious move. Queen a4, attacking c6, attacking e4, and now black played queen e8, guarding both. Now look here, there's some games. Bratislav Dolezal, and I don't know if that's an over-the-board player or some kind of correspondence. So he just defends with queen e8, which is an extremely logical move. The only thing is, like, this file could backfire for black. White has the rooks connected, and he's ready to play rook e1. So this move is much simpler. And we can't play f takes, which we would like to open this rook, potentially. H takes, these are knight. H takes is possible, actually. It's not very inspiring, though. We're going to play knight d4. Something like queen f6. Black is fine, I guess. So knight takes, and this was played a couple of games. If we could play for f5 square, where's the queen going? That's very strange that the same player has two games with black in the same exact random, rare position. Queen d6, bishop f5. Yeah, I don't like this f5 square. I'm not sure if white's really better, but he does have the better structure. And there's stuff like queen g4. I'm not crazy about this. Black is not better, for sure, with a certain amount of weaknesses. So I don't know. Queen e8, rook e1, and that's a problem. I don't like this file. The file is a problem. White's connected. Hey, what's up, Juicebox Wizard? Did I see you here? Turkey Farm? Cockatiri? Chatiri. Never mind, your suggestion made no sense. Good, because I didn't get it. Wait. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, this... You know, another question here, obviously, is 92. Okay? This is a problem. So rook e1. The only downside is that we're weakening f2. I will say this about Nimzovich. He does put a fair amount of importance on pawn structure. Here we see the 2 islands versus 3. Now f5, Schliemann playing wildly aggressive, opening up his king. But it looks like white's losing a piece. I mean, there's just no way to save the bishop. It has only bishop c7. I mean, this is clearly a disaster. If we have to do something like this, we'll lose f2 anyway. So, I mean, f5 is a pretty serious threat. White needs an answer. So he plays knight d4. Is the idea to play this? How is our bishop not getting trapped? If, for example, f4, f3, pawn takes g3, pawn takes g3, and we're just going to get this back, and everything's okay, right? Maybe not so simple. It's not that simple. For example, queen f7. Guys, you can also feel free to make suggestions. Queen f7, pawn takes e4. Queen f2 check, king h2, something like bishop d6 with a g3. Hello, you know, that looks pretty dangerous. Probably lost. Just to point out like how tricky this could get. There's no guarantees here. You're saying e5 there. So in our variation here, f4, f3, take, queen f7, pawn takes pawn, check here, bishop d6, e5, bishop takes, and we're good. I should have seen that. And now we're threatening rook f1, and the c6 is hanging, the bishop's hanging, so the whole game is probably okay. Unless black has some sort of miraculous move here. Rook f4 is a little late. That was actually not the game, so it's like knight d4, and he plays bishop takes d4, which is bad news. Bishop h3, seriously? f3, are we in that variation? f4, f3, pawn takes, queen f7, pawn takes, queen check. You're serious? You're not serious. No, it's fun to look at, bishop h3. Yeah, let's check. Yeah, I mean, white's better. According to the engine, though, this is the best move, bishop d7. It's not that simple. A b2's hanging. Black has the bishop pair. But apparently he's much better after knight f5. Alright. Let's see if we can find something better. f5, knight d4. So f4 doesn't work. It's close, though. Is there any other move for black? I mean, it feels like black should have something here. Maybe queen e5, right? No, this is a problem. I'm not convinced about what's going on here. Queen e5, hitting g3. Our dark squares start to fall. This is actually a very dangerous position for white now. I don't know what I would do. I guess bishop takes. Probably bishop takes. Yes. Even this is unclear. So I think this is an improvement, queen e5. Peter has all kinds of ideas. Wow. That's not even the least of white's worries, apparently. Bishop d6 is even stronger. That's a very surprising move. Just move the bishop. Pawn takes, bishop takes, g3. And all of a sudden it's white's king that's exposed instead of black. So I don't know, what are we doing here? He has to take with the bishop. Got it. Alright, easy. He can't play f4 because of bishop takes. Thank you, computer. Well, I mean, he can play it, but he's going to end up losing pawns. So, like, pawn takes, check, I don't know, king h7, queen takes c5, pawn takes bishop. We don't lose a piece or anything for black. But the point is, at the end of the day, he has lots of weaknesses. His king is exposed. He has a bad pawn structure. It's basically a trade of pieces, but this is an ideal position now. We have a strong knight on d4. Thanks, Agnes Karadusky, for the donation. 200 bits for Nimzovich. Let's hear it for Nimzovich. So the idea isn't to play f3 on f4. The idea is just to take here. And that's why black plays this, but I don't like this move. It just doesn't feel right. The dark square bishop, I mean, the knight is strong too. This is a concession, although I guess black's whole position isn't good. Now we have a beautiful game. Weaknesses on the dark squares. There's a whole network of weak squares in the dark squares, and black's moved his pawns up. I just don't see much counterplay for black. This is not a good position for Rudolf Spielmann now. He has no active counterplay. This is a disaster. He died of pneumonia. Yeah. That's how my mom passed away. A lot of people who get Alzheimer's usually die of pneumonia eventually. I guess very common for elderly, not so much when you're 48. Maybe now with COVID it is. This is a disaster. I would say this is like a winning position for white. Based on weakness of pawns, the e-file, control of the dark squares. I mean, Spielman here, he tried to play aggressively, and then he ended up with like a clearly worse symmetrical position. Total fail. All that like opening up his king for nothing. Now white just has the open file. You've got a blockade on the pawns with b4. This is over. Perfect position. And now it looks like queen e3, but that's not enough. But this really begins, you get the feel for Nimzovich when you see this. Like you see this game, the e5 square, the blockade of the hanging pawns. Very characteristic. He just wins a pawn here. Actually, not right away. This opens up another line. Plus the king is centralized. Model position for white. Queen c5. Tying him down and immobilizing the pawn. Though the queen isn't really an optimal blockader. He has a trick. I was trying to play like bishop takes f5 with the idea of rook e7. But there's no follow-up. So f4 is just binding the dark squares. King g7 is a blunder. So black is in like a desperate situation here. White's actually threatening to play pawn takes pawn and queen e3. Rook takes e6, does that work? Just simply? Well, I mean, there's rook e2 check, I guess. Is that even a good move? Well, no. I mean, we would play rook e8, I guess. Right? No, honestly, I think it's just a trade. We want a pawn, though. Maybe two. Yeah, that should be winning 2 pawns up. So maybe black does rook e2 check. Queen f5. This is winning. Yeah, it's 2 pawns up. It looks like rook e6 is good enough. Rook e6, bishop f5. This is scared knight suggestion. Yeah, this wins. We're just going to be 2 pawns up in an ending. I'm not sure if we want to take right away, but we're probably going to have to. Maybe he saw something he didn't like. I don't know. You know, it's double pawns on the king side. This is not optimal. I will say that. I'm going to go out on a limb and bet that it's not white's best move. You're allowing a lot of simplification. It's probably a winning position with the passed pawn. Actually, the king can hide here on h2 pretty well. But I'm going to imagine that white has better if he just keeps the pressure. I guess it's not going anywhere. Like, black can't defend against that threat, no matter what he does. So we don't have to rush with rook takes e6. It's in the position. f4, I expected actually g4, but that'll be even worse. There's no defense here. How about how about bishop f7, actually? I mean, it doesn't matter. It's all over. There's no move for black here. And this is crushing. There's no move. There's nothing he could have done. It's total paralysis. Yeah, it's totally lost. So it ends like this. This is cute because you have rook e7 check. There was no way Black could have defended. The moral of the story is, of course, the G5 in the Scotch there. And we're winning a piece. Alright, let's take a look at another game. Let me grab another game. Just stay with us for more Nimzovich. Barman, Meister, Turner, Spielman, Nimzovich, Sicilian, Alpin, Sicilian. So the first C3 Sicilians were Nimzovich, Acerbate. Your favorite. Your new favorite. French Exchange, Birds Defense. I'm trying to select a good game. But let's find something more famous. Nosko Borowski. Nimzovich Rubinstein. He lost. Nimzovich versus Mortimer. Petrov. Let me see this. Yeah, that last game. That's one of my favorite Spielman games. Mortimer. Let's check out a Petrov. Just bear with me for a second while I add this game. Alright, this is Nimzovich versus a lesser-known master. Mortimer. Was known, though. This is from Ostend B Tournament, 1907. Okay. I just want to get an appreciation of the play here, the style. You guys see this board? Nimzovich versus Mortimer. I should change the pawn to text. Thanks for the donations from Acerbate and Agnes Karadewski. Guys, tomorrow night we have a subscriber stream. Don't forget to submit a game if you're a subscriber. Acerbate, yeah, I made the study like open so everybody can see it. Normally I keep my studies private. So these are going to remain open. Anything I analyze on Wednesdays, I'll leave open for everybody. So you're allowed. So he doesn't play the Cochrane Gambit. Then black doesn't play this garbage or whatever. Of course, that's absurd. D6, knight f3. I mean, Asterbate likes to play the Cochrane Gambit. That's not Nimzovich's style. Plays correctly. Knight f3, knight takes now. Interestingly, no, you can't draw arrows. You can clone it, though, Heinisberger. You can clone the study and do what you want with it. You know how to do that, right? Like, studies that are open to everyone, you can make a copy of it and do whatever you want with it. You can't draw arrows in mine. So, the interesting thing is that today, one of the most popular variations against the Petrov is the Nimzovich variation with knight c3. So this is literally named after Nimzovich. I suppose he played this later. You know, oftentimes like openings get named because of one single game. Maybe actually he didn't play it that many times, but he played like one famous game of this move, so it's called the Nimzovich. In fact, in the game when Nimzovich played it, because I remember, he did something unusual. Like, the original plan was wrong. Basically, like bishop e7, Nimzovich played bishop d3, which is the most natural move. Nimzovich's Nimzovich variation is the wrong plan. He like castles kingside and wastes time with bishop d3. Modern players know you're supposed to play this or this. Castle queenside as fast as possible. That's the dangerous line. You're castling queenside as fast as possible and then using your kingside pawns to attack black. That's not the way that Nimzovich played it. You know, he didn't play it as dynamically as could be done. So interestingly here, it's funny that I don't remember this being referred to as the Nimzovich variation, so I'm not sure what this is called. Here it says Kaufman attack. c4, unclear who first played this. Preempting d5. I mean, this is a known variation. Any Petrov book, you know, includes this. c4 controls the center. Bishop e7, knight c3. So his idea is that his c-pawn doesn't get blocked. Well, in a way, Burak Carlson, you're right, but in a way you're wrong. You know, it depends on what we mean by anti-positional. I mean, like, if black doesn't have a d-pawn, and you play c4, and you're talking about a position where black has like an open file here, or something like that, then you could say, well, yeah, black plays c5, and you're making yourself backward on a d file. c4 is anti-positional. I don't think that c4 is anti-positional here. You're not making your d-pawn backward on an open file or something. You just aren't used to seeing this move, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a move that just controls the center. It completely makes sense. It's, of course, much less common than other main lines. But no, I wouldn't say it's anti-positional. It would be anti-positional if white couldn't play d4 in the future, something like that, or he didn't have enough control of d4, but I don't think it's really an issue. c4 is a good move. In fact, it has one of the higher winning percentages if you look at the statistics here. The only question is the center. I mean, the open file is important, and you've got to get your king out of the center quickly, usually. So white doesn't often have a lot of time to play an extra move like that. No, I don't think it's truly anti-positional. Only if there was no d-pawn for black. Bishop e7, knight c3, knight f6 and d4. So I don't know. Here, I mean, black should trade knights normally. That's got to be standard. For black to play knight f6 is going against fundamental principles. Think about it. I mean, his bishop's diagonal here. White just developed a piece, and now black is undeveloping and saying, hey, it's your turn again. I like this, though, in this line. I like this a lot better. You guys understand why? My friend Zlatko plays this. It's becoming kind of a trend now. The idea is that the knight is misplaced. It's blocking the c-pawn. And black can play like d5 later. But if you got the c-pawn on c4, this no longer makes that much sense. So Mortimer is wrong to play knight f6. I don't think this move is justified in any sense. He's wasting time, and he's not exchanging pieces when he has less space. And this knight is not a problem. It's now not blocking the c-pawn, which is influencing the center. The white has a perfect position here. It actually looks like Schliemann Defense. Rapport. See, that's a bad sign for black. You know? It's a bad sign when the only player who plays this opening is Rapport. That's not a good sign for your opening. That means that it's like unsound or just incorrect or something. Schliemann Rapport managed to score. Schliemann managed to score a half point out of 2. That's embarrassing. I don't know, dude. He's like in the top 15 in the world. The #1 player in Hungary. He might be top 10. He's close. He's probably top 20 for sure. Top 15 maybe now. 27-35. What planet are you from? You need to get out more often. You're only watching like the Magnus Carlsen private arenas or whatever. In Magnus Carlsen world, there's only 10 players. Virat Carlsen. You're living in Magnus Carlsen world, where there's only 10 personal friends of Magnus, who are the only chess players in the world, or whatever. You know, that's what Magnus wants you to all believe. He controls the chess world with his monopoly, and just his private friends can play in his select elite tournaments or whatever. So c6. c6 trying to support d5. It's hard to recommend another way for black to develop here. Maybe you can play like knight d7, knight f8, knight g6, I would think. But it's passive. I've also seen c6, knight a6, knight c7, and then question about when to play d5. But the way that Schliemann played the opening is, no doubt, like, if you analyze a game, Schliemann versus Rapport, like, Schlieman's good in opening preparation. That's his greatest strength. He has very good opening prep. That's the reason he's 2,700. He'll probably outplay Schliemann, or outplay Rapport in the opening and then mess up later on or something. But it looks like castles for black. I would think h3. This is Velimirovich Reshevsky, 1976. Not bad. Man. Ratings are inflated, seriously. You know that the rating system is inflated when, like, Reshevsky was 25-15 in 1976. He's probably stronger than that. Now everyone's 2,700. I'd like to see Schliemann play a match with Sammy Reshevsky. He's like 200 points higher. I'd like to see the now Schliemann. Whatever. Okay, so d4, h3 should be an idea. So he played bishop e2. I mean, white is concerned about bishop g4. Probably. So I like this best. Castles, and then bishop d3. Taking away bishop f5. So how does black develop his white square bishop? Not so easy. Imagine playing the Magnus of Monopoly in a competitive Monopoly game. Spending hours managing mortgages, only be dominated by some unbelievable endgame dice rolling technique. Railroad utilities domination. Juicebox, do you remember my joke about being a professional Monopoly player? Magnus is brutal in chess and business. He's probably good at Monopoly. That's what I tell all the girls at parties. I'm a professional Monopoly player. I just want to troll people at parties that seem kind of dumb. No, but I'm seriously, like, Magnus is like taking over the chess world. I'm not into it, you know. I like the mom and pop stores. I don't want to support Magnus's chess monopoly. But seriously, like, Virat Krasnov never heard of Rapport. Why? Because he's never invited to the private Magnus tournaments in Magnus World. We're moving to this, like, snob elite chess world. Actually, it's always been like that for a long time. They were just different elite snob grandmaster groups. More defined now with online chess and during this lockdown. I don't think Rapport maybe does the online chess thing too much. Knight on bd7, castles, knight f8. See, this is logical. And now I don't know. I don't like this development with bishop e2. h3 and bishop d3 was probably better. What do we do? Queen c2. See, this for me is not inspiring. Still, it's a constructive move, I guess. The battle should really, to some degree, revolve around one side or the other playing d5. Who's 1-0 against Rockport? Queen c2. Knight g6. h3. He's the strongest player in the world I have perfect score against. Castles. And now bishop e3. In honor of Acerbate. So I have to say that I don't think that white got much here. Queen c2 and bishop e3. These moves are not inspiring. But on the other hand, black can't really do a lot. The queen c2 is not so stupid, though. Because if you think about it, it's prophylaxis. We're preventing bishop f5. g6 would be a very weakening move. And kind of stupid after knight f8. Mortimer, it's interesting, he didn't like bishop g4. I mean, there's no threat, but at least you would develop the piece. But I think there's more to this way that Nimzovich played this than meets the eye. Like, I just don't understand the position well enough, or I'm not used to this kind of position well enough. I'm underestimating his setup here. My first glance was that it's passive and sort of not a big deal. But if you think about it, bishop e2 sort of like takes out the venom of bishop g4, and queen c2 stops bishop f5. So we're sort of taking away our opponent's resources, little by little. Kind of Karpovian in a way. Knight g6. There was no real threat with this move. And now he plays h3, taking away bishop g4. He's essentially the first prophylactic player. Castles. Now the next move, I don't know. I understand that white doesn't have a good square for the bishop. I would think that black is going to play d5 sooner or later. Well, what do we play? Rook E1, I would think, would be the most logical. Placing the rook on an open file. Guys, welcome to the stream. Please subscribe and donate if you can afford it. Appreciate the support. We're going over our Nimzovich games, and then we're going to do some opening analysis a little bit later. This is Nimzovich versus Mortimer from Ostend 1907. But you know who was playing around this time? Rubinstein. You know, interesting. Nimzovich never really had the opportunity to play a match for big money. The Archbishop's already developed, true. The problem is the rook. And I think that's why he plays bishop e3. The next move by black is incomprehensible. Though I understand black's position is rather cramped, wouldn't it be logical to play d5 now? What do you guys think this here that Nimzovich would have done? If d5. I feel like that's the important thing. When white or black plays d5 and defines the center. Would white have taken, or would he have played c5? So like takes doesn't seem right, does it? Takes, knight takes, with a solid blockade for black. I'm having trouble imagining white having much of an advantage here. So it seems like if d5, white would have had to have played. Maybe he could leave the tension somehow. Or he could have played c5. But it seems to me that Mortimer has to play d5 here. Bang, there's the engine. Engine is strong. It understands. It's like, well, maybe we can play rook e8. Rook e8 is a neutral move, keeping his options open, but I think that at some point black's going to need to play d5 just to have enough room to breathe. Alright. So I'm not that inspired by this position so far. This is horrific. Okay. What is black thinking when he played knight e8? This has to be about... No, I don't have a clue. He's retreating his knight back to e8. Not rook e8, but knight e8. Undeveloping his knight back. Difficult to see a purpose for this, other than bishop f6, which is liable to get attacked by knight e4. The only other idea for black is knight h4. Trading pieces? If he can. Maybe. But knight e8 is a very dubious move. So check out the next move. Wow. Okay, I don't know Mortimer. He was like a weaker master. I don't know much about him, I'm saying. As a weaker master in that period 100 years ago. Not a well-known player. But Nimzovich now played knight h2. This is clearly about playing f4. And it's apparent that it's yeah, Cockatier. It's a typical Petrov and also exchange Aliakin variation. There's always a question whether black or white should play d5. White to gain space, black to hold white off. But this is interesting. He plays knight h2 now. Perhaps to meet f5, or perhaps for himself to play for f4, f5. Black plays f5, and white answers with f4. So maybe knight e8 wasn't so stupid after all. It's unbelievable. It's risky. I would imagine that white could allow f4, maybe. Here. Let's say, for example, rook d1, f4, bishop back, and now we would make the point that you've overextended yourself. Because there's a lot of weaknesses on the white squares in black's position, particularly if we can play like bishop d3 or bishop g4. f4 gives him a little bit of space, but it's possible that it has more drawbacks than positives. I mean, his ability to connect is totally disrupted by the knight on f6. This rook will come to e1, and the bishop will activate. White has no bad pieces. His knight will come back to g4, f3. You know, I would think that white is definitely better here. So anyway, it's a way to play. I don't know. Which is better? You can let black play f4 and sort of absorb it, and then try to play against the white square weaknesses. Nimzovich just played f4 himself. Now this bishop is really blocked. Black has the same problem, of course. White has more space, but black's knight will be able to come back to f6 probably. Alright, another wild idea for white, g4. Could we perhaps go g4 at some point? Try to destroy black's f5 pawn. Anonymous Gifter just gave NFDS1 a tier 1 sub. Thank you, Anonymous Gifter. This may look like a wild move to those of you who don't like to move your kingside pawns, but it's a standard type of break in closed positions, especially like the King's Indian. If black plays f5 in the King's Indian and the center gets locked and we need a way to break through, g4 is going to be a key idea. Closed games, you have to use your pawns actively. White has g4, bishop d3, bring the other rook over. I think we have strong chances. But you have to make sure that it's supported properly. Maybe prophylactic move like king h1. Then you can use the g file possibly. So I think the g4 should be seriously considered. Notice that black doesn't have the same kind of idea because his knight is misplaced at g6. So f4, bishop d7, and now bishop d3. Yeah. Thanks to the space that we have with those pawns there, we can just comfortably set up our pieces behind. Now g4 comes with even more power. Rook c8. And now what? Rook c8 seems to be maybe an idea to play b5, but it's basically a rook on a closed file. I would think I would play g4 pretty quickly here if this was like a blitz game. I'm on board with this. I mean, time is money. I guess black can defend with knight h4. Guarding f5, and it's not so easy to break it down. Mortimer is trickier than it looks. I have the feeling. Well, white needs a break to open the position for his pieces, so he plays this harmless looking move. I'm not in love with a3. Just a waiting move. Black should play king h8 at some point. I would probably play king h8 here, because this diagonal could be relevant. Then we have stuff like b5. For example, if black plays b5 now, trying to undermine white's center. White has like take, take, and queen b3 check, and then this is hanging. So if the black king isn't in the diagonal, black can start to consider active options. He does play king h8 later, but it seems like he didn't understand prophylaxis, like Nimzovich. Thanks, Chescudo. I know. You can live with it. You'll pull through. That little text there. I know, but Mortimer, you know, we can't shorten his name on him. It wouldn't be right. Yeah, it's a little OCD. We all have OCD. It's all right. We're chess players. D5. Wow. Space is the final frontier. The thing about this position that's a little problematic is this. I'm concerned about knight f6, knight e4. If that happened, we could be in some trouble. We might get clogged up. So now d5. This is strongly considered just grabbing space. This can't be played, or maybe it can, like a stonewall. But basically, black has a stonewall Dutch now, and this pawn is a sacrifice. Can I sacrifice this pawn? I'm not sure that works. That doesn't work because of e6. So he couldn't play knight f6. If c5, this doesn't look like a big deal. I'm liking white. Whoops, sorry guys. So if c5, I'm liking white here. No ability to play this. No knight f6. b6 is not a big deal. We could just meet it with b4. This looks very strong. Instead, Nimzovich plays this, just heading back to the center. He didn't want to lock the position. Interesting. But he has the ability to play that now. See, that's... I don't like that. I want to see what the Oracle says. Number 1 move. See, I'm not bad. No, it's wavering now. Nimzovich or me. Computer likes c5 though. I mean, I just think this is too important. You know, he's got that square. Black doesn't have enough counterplay here. I prefer c5. Knight f3, knight d6, cd5, cd5, queen b3. So black's basically sacrificing a pawn now with this. It just went into tactical chaos. Not really. It's actually not tactical chaos, but c5, king h8. Oh, you like knight h8. Good plan. Knight h8. I'm afraid that g4 might be strong there. The only thing about knight h8 is that you have knight h4 in the back of your mind. So basically, if I try to do g4, you can always do this. The moment that I play g4, that's my only thing about not playing knight h8. I'd like to have that ability. If you play knight h8, then I can go g4. And now black will probably have to play like g6 or something. I guess it's not that bad. Look at this arrangement. But it's still pretty solid. So he didn't want to lock it up that much. Plays knight f3. Black plays this. Take, take, and then here. And now this pawn is probably going to go. He grabs the dark squared bishop. And now knight takes e7 check, king h8. And both sides have rooks hanging. White is up a pawn. White gave up their bad bishop, though, and black gave up their good bishop. How do you guys think about that? That e3 acerbate bishop is the bishop we'd rather trade off with the central pawn and f on dark squares, I guess. But this one could be dangerous. I think that black's white square bishop can still do some damage here. Well, both our rooks are hanging. From white's perspective, I'm a little concerned about the f4. So he just plays simply takes. And then the e5 square. Speaking of Nimzovich, this is the second game in a row where white had domination of e5. Where's Morales today? This should be like the Morales stream. Morales is very Nimzovichian. He always has control of e5 with everything, with white. Well, I think that when black played, honestly, when black played d5, from that moment he's looking for situations where he could sack this pawn. Like here. He's hoping for stuff like that. You know, he's hoping for a situation where he can give up that pawn, and maybe this bishop will be strong. It's a risk, though. You know, I don't think I would have played d5 personally here, though it wasn't easy to say what black should do. I wouldn't have played this position for black. I definitely wouldn't have played knight e8. So he sacks a pawn. Will he have enough compensation? The knight is essentially trapped. Must be defended by a piece. And then we have knight e5. So maybe this is just winning. Tomorrow night's subscriber stream. We've got 4 submissions for tomorrow, 6:30 CET. Acetate, Yabatis, Princess Chess, and Acerbate. Acetate and Acerbate? Are you serious? Those are our subscribers? How does black avoid losing a piece here? I mean, isn't this coming next? And that's it? There is d4. Maybe the d4 square. Whoa. Why does knight e5 not win? Something to do with this? You guys understand? Oh, he has bishop e6. That's the point. Very deep. And he saves the knight. So rook e8. Obviously we have strong threats. Knight g5. This diagonal. The black king is unsafe. But we would need a way to get the queen over here. If only we could play like queen f2. Knight g5, it's game over. How do you get the queen to f2? How to get the queen over to the king side? He has to go now. Time to go now. Queen f7. That looks devastating. So this game is looking kind of lopsided. White's up a pawn with a strong attack. I'm not sure black can survive. He plays this. It's so tempting to sacrifice like a whole rook, maybe the exchange here. But it's not clear we have a mate. Knight g5. For example, rook e1, knight e1. Does white have a mate? Probably not. Queen takes. He has only move king g8. Is there a mate somewhere? Check. King h8. Perpetual only. Check here. Check. King f8. Getting away. And then up here he gets away for sure. Check. King d6. And then winning the queen with knight f7. So this might actually work. It looks like it works. If we win his queen, we have decisive material. We can actually force this variation, it looks like. Anybody else? Any suggestions for a decisive win? Nimzovich played bishop takes c2. I don't see a defense for black here. Maybe he has another way to defend. Something difficult to see. A suggestion. Threatening mate. I mean, he could sack his queen, I guess. That's a problem. Oh, man. But pawn takes. Knight takes d3. Check. And then g6. Like, even this is probably winning for white. It is. The beat just goes on. So let's see what the best move was. I'm voting for knight g5. I guess everything's good. Rook e8, queen e8, queen e8, bishop e8, rook c1, pinning. His move is the second best. My move is third best. But I didn't consider knight takes a1. This is his best defense here. I missed this. A different version of the queen sacrifice. Take, king h2, and then sack the queen. White's attack is still strong though. But this is a little messy. It looks like white was probably winning. But his way is easier. So he just takes. And then knight e5. This is also very strong. Good knight versus bad bishop. And then black sacks the exchange, but it's hopeless. This wasn't a bad game by white. It doesn't look flashy, but he never really let it get out of control. I don't think that black was ever okay in this game. You know, even though the opening looks sort of solid. This is the game. He just sacked the exchange. He has nothing for the exchange. And now the bishop's blocked. So much for that idea. And now it's just protected. Everything's protected. This was apparently a blunder. Rook takes f5. That's a lot stronger. Oof. Nimzovich missed rook takes f5. He played this. It's still good. He's up a piece. Alright. That was cool. So it's 12:30, guys. We have an hour left. Is that right? Usually we analyze like 2 games. Alright, time to start talking about openings. Let me make a new opening study here. What is today? The 10th February. I'm American. Americans put the month first. Alright. British do it that way, right? Or not? Do we get that from the Brits? How do we start putting the month before the day? 10:31? Dude, what am I doing? What is up with me? I just wrote that? I think it's Halloween. That's weird. It was supposed to be... I was putting the day first. What am I doing? Never mind. Opening study. Wild Wednesday opening ideas. Let's just... 2. Let's call it that. So organized. Chapter 1. No, I think I was thinking 10, like today was the 10th. I was going to change it and put... I get confused, you know, I live in Hungary, but I'm American. So, all my life I wrote the month first, and then I had to start changing and writing day first. And it gets like, oh, like I don't know what I'm doing anymore. It's confusing. Today's the 10th. But I don't know where 31 came from. Alright, so what are we going to look at today? Astrobate usually have good suggestions. No, we don't trust Astrobate on openings. Thinking about what to analyze for today. Any suggestions? Commonwealth countries put the day first, so I don't understand why is America like the United States, why is the United States the only country in the world that puts the month first? What's up with that? I thought that was one of those things we inherited from the British. Oh no. You're in the wrong stream. Refuting the Mora? It's not worth my time. Seriously. Queen's Gambit accepted. What do you guys want to look at? I'm taking 2 or 3 suggestions, and then we'll vote. Mora doesn't count. Someone suggested the Smith, the Nimzo Larson, but I don't think that's very practical. The Edinburgh. What's that? I was analyzing interesting Queen's Gambit accepted with Antoni this week. After knight of 3, knight of 6, e3, e6, bishop takes c4, a6 or c5, castles, a6, bishop b3. Just made me think of something. You know, a weird thing here for me is that I've never really had a good system against the Queen's Gambit accepted with white. Jeff Chessmurph wants to analyze the Schliemann. Okay, that's fun. That's fun. It's a fun suggestion. Alright, let's do that. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop e5, f5. Now, let me adjust my mind, because The Queen's Gambit accepted and the Schliemann are a little bit different. So for like the last 25 years, knight c3 was regarded as white's best move. But now it's very popular to play d3. But frankly, I mean, that move seems really, I don't know, I always thought like this move seems so feeble. Black's like playing the King's Gambit with black and you're just like, okay, d3. Seriously, that's the best you can do? d3? Positional based approach. Do you guys want to go a step back and talk about the Roy Lopez in general? I was trying to explain this to a beginner the other day. He played bishop e5, but he didn't really know the openings. And I said, do you understand what you're doing here? Because when you play bishop c4, you're attacking f7. It's more direct. When you play bishop e5, it's like a deeper sort of strategic idea. You're playing for control of a square, I think. Beyond developing quickly, you're not threatening anything immediate. You know, bishop takes c6 is not a big deal. I mean, basically, black could, like, just not move in this position. Black could give white a free move in this position, and his position probably wouldn't be lost. You know? What if black just said, white, it's your turn. Go ahead. Try to do that against the Joko. Just to illustrate these two openings, how different they are. Imagine giving white a free move in the Joko versus giving white a free move in the Roy Lopez. It's probably a lot more dangerous, right? Seriously. If I just say, okay, it's your turn, what can you do to me? Like, you can't take this pawn on c6. You know, you can't take the pawn on e5. Bishop c6, d takes c6, knight e5 is nothing. a6 it's a totally obnoxious move. You're saying like, okay, you have no threat whatsoever. I don't give a crap about bishop e5. I'm so arrogant I can play a6 and encourage you to double my pawns on c6. Like, think about how arrogant that move is, in a way. Everyone just takes this stuff for granted, but if you think about it, like, that's like the Rossolimo Sicilian. e4, c5, like knight f3, knight c6, bishop e5. Do you know how bad this move is? a6. Like, this is awful for black. This is really bad. Well, okay, so is the Italian better than the Spanish? I don't know if it's better, but I think it's better for beginners to play because it's clearly an attacking system where you're attacking f7 and putting pressure on black immediately. My point is, this is a much subtler sort of positional opening in a way. White has no immediate threat, and thus another idea, right? f5 is playable, but way more dangerous against bishop c4. I think I don't know that Steinitz played that, but Steinitz definitely played this. I'm sure that there's a Steinitz game with e4, e5, bishop c4, f5. And it's not good for black, but it's weird, and you could try it. But I mean, the point is, the Schliemann is inherently sound. Knight c6, bishop e5, f5. Why? It's not really the King's Gambit, I guess. What about e takes f5? We're giving up our strong point in the center. I mean, this variation isn't commonly played, but at least when you're black, you have to know what to do. And a lot of people probably take this for granted. What happens if white takes on f5? And to answer the last question, Italian is better than Spanish. It's not that simple. I don't think it's better. I think it's more direct and more aggressive, but in the short term, and leads to maybe slightly more open positions, depending on what white plays. But I wonder, what about taking on f5, e4? There's no time for d5 because of this. Correct? We'd like to play... I mean, we don't really want to play e4. e4 is not really a constructive move for black in the Schliemann. We're not developing any pieces. But we are gaining a little bit of space, in a sense, by driving that knight from f3. I'm just making sure this line we understand. Queen e2, queen e7. Jack Peters actually played this against Kacyan in 2010 with white. Closed Italian would be like the slow Joko with d3, which is what most people play now, essentially. Okay, so this is the point. Now the knight doesn't have a place to go. Bishop takes c6. How do you recapture? I've looked at this line briefly before. I just wanted to verify how the best way to play it is. See, if you take this way, knight d4, and he's got... This is what Jackie Peters did. Columnist for the... I think he was a columnist for the LA Times. Knight d4. What about b takes, though? That's more aggressive. You're not going to let white have access to the e6 square, and you're going to take toward the center. But you're not opening your bishop immediately. However, there could be chances the bishop could go to the longer diagonal at b7. Knight d4. This is the move that's the most interesting. I think there's some room for new ideas here. Let's see what the Oracle says. We've got to use the Oracle, but not mindlessly. Interestingly, the Oracle prefers b takes c6. Here you have 20 games of master level games in an unknown, unreally explored variation that's never had a good reputation for white. But theory is probably like a little inaccurate. You know, it looks like b takes is actually better. I'm not surprised. 2 out of 3 masters play d takes c6 here because they read it in a book. Including Grandmaster Malekset Kacyan, who's a solid player. He's okay with a draw with Jack Peters, who was a strong player. But that's interesting. So immediately you find this is possibly better, but it's also more unclear. This variation is probably simpler. Takes, knight d4, queen e5, double attack. And that's what's recommended in books. Draw by repetition. Knight f3, queen e7, knight d4. Queen e5, knight f3, queen e7, knight d4. Exciting. Take toward the center if you can, but can black afford it? You know, that's the question. Is this too risky? It's possible these players analyze with a computer, though I don't think Ladislav Dobrovolsky, unless that's a correspondence game, used a computer in 1993. Though we had computers in 1993, it wasn't unheard of. I analyzed adjournments with Fritz 5 or something. I analyzed my adjourned games with the engine, saving at least one adjourned game with the computer analysis in an endgame. But I mean, it's also a sort of principle. Take toward the center with the pawns, if you can, like Astrobate said. Knight d4, now what? Queen e5, again is a draw. But that's not very ambitious. Of course, black is black and white is white. Can we play for more here? I want to play for more. I didn't play b takes c to agree to a draw like Mark Lyle. Like, what's the point to do that? Why not just play d takes c if you just want to draw? Knight d4. Can black play for more? This is an interesting move, but is it going too far? Is this hole over here important? Or what are we going to do? This is fascinating. Knight b5. Also possible is knight b3. By the way, if queen h5 check, what's going on? Are we going for it? I assume we're going to go all in here. But then again, you could probably play queen f7 and trade queens. But black is down a pawn in an endgame. I mean, I'm not real confident about this. But the good king and the weakness of the f5 pawn makes me feel like black's probably okay. Yeah, computer thinks that black's better. So queen h5 is definitely bad. This guy played knight b5. Fritz too. Fat Fritz. That's a database? No. What is that? Poor chess base. They need a new marketing team. So why doesn't Magnus just get it over with and buy ChessBase too? So he can just own everything. Boardwalk, Park Place, the entire chess world. Maybe ChessBase is holding out for a better offer. He bought New Chess. I guess it doesn't make sense to buy both. I'm curious about this position. Do we have to play? D6 looks playable. But something's weird about this whole thing. I don't really trust our position, but maybe it's still good. White's better, according to the engine. Castles. Alright, so there's a game from 1997. Maybe black analyzed this with a computer, maybe not. But d5 is the best move. I mean, what's the sense in playing the Schliemann if you're going to agree to a draw in 10 moves? It's not very fun. d3, c6, and knight on 5 to c3. This is a neat idea. Wow. I was thinking about how fun this position would be. That doesn't work, though. Apparently white can sack a piece here with knight c3. Anyway, the moral of the story is that we're looking at the Schliemann today. Let's put it over there. So our conclusion is knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5. Yeah, this is a new schedule for Wednesday. Opening analysis. E takes f5 is like dubious. Because white can no longer really play for a win, it looks like. e4, queen e2, queen e7, and it's like a draw. If you play this, draw by repetition. That's like white's best line. But if black wants more than a draw, to sum up, it looks like you have to play b takes c, which might actually be a better move. But this is the interesting position. We only looked at c5. and the queen e5 draw variation. But maybe white has, or black has other options here. This is an insane move. G6. Stockfish novelty. I mean, a true psychopath would play this. This is crazy. You feel the power of the f5 pawn, and you want to make it go away. But I mean, the idea is, of course, primarily bishop g7. But if you play the Schliemann, it's good to be psychopathic. That's the point. It seems like this is the number one move. Knight f6. Chonka Attila, who I know. Knight to c3, best move. c5, best move. Check out white's score here, by the way. 4 out of 5 ain't bad. 4.5 to be exact. White has 4.5 out of 5 points in this position. Is that normal? Seriously. White has 4.5 out of 5 with the dubious line. Quick, black's playing the riskier version here, of course. There's no way that white should score 4.5 against competent opposition here. You're right, it's 3.5. Thank you, math. Math Magical has it all figured out. It's 3.5 out of 4. Exactly. Not as convincing. That's why I don't do math. That's the chess party. The party chess player combo question always. Oh, so you're a math person. No, I suck at math. I failed all my math courses in college and dropped them. This is an interesting position, though. It's fun. So Chonka Attila actually went into this. Knight on db5. He was young then. He's a little more solid these days. d5, d3. Computer wants to play g4. Isn't that the spirit of things? g4. We'll just cop out here and say it's unclear. But black should score decently. If you play the Schliemann and someone plays this against you, you should go for e4. After takes, this is more interesting, but more unclear. Don't be a chicken and just take a draw with d takes c6, I guess. It is possible to go here, interestingly. See, when you have an uncommon opening like the Schliemann, the thing is you can do a lot with opening analysis with the engines. It's not like the Najdorf. The Najdorf has been like analyzed every variation, like 30 moves deep. Even the less common lines are fairly well analyzed. Here, there's a lot of fertile ground. You could find new ideas that had never been found. Still. Which makes it kind of fun. That's a blunder. Todorovic, I think, is a grandmaster. It's a fairly common Yugoslav name, I guess, but I'm pretty sure that's the GM, Todorovic. There's probably more than one. This is stupid for white. All right, let's move on to a serious variation. Anyway, I don't want to neglect it, but this is the move that's really been a problem. This is the hot move for white. D3. Actually, most everyone plays f takes e4, but don't be so sure. I'm going to turn off the engine so I'm not biased here too much, but the thing is, when you play f takes e4, you got to think about how that affects the position. Like, in a vacuum, I don't like exchanging pawns in a tense situation in the opening. It's usually wrong. The Anglo-Italian opening. The Scotch-Italian. E-pawn capture. Remember what this does. You're opening the F file, but you're opening the D file for him or her. We've got to think about the effect of our moves on the position. Like weak poker players who don't think about what cards their opponents are holding. A lot of weak chess players only think about what their move does for them. When I make this move, like, yeah, I'm opening the F file for myself. But only the stronger players stop to think about what they're doing for the other guy. I mean, this queen coming to D5, the fact that the file is open now changes the position significantly. You've always got to think about, how am I helping the opponent? It's important. So I don't like this move in a vacuum, but the problem is, after D3, he can take on F5, and we don't have this E4 anymore. That's why it's different from the last variation. In other words, when you play knight F6, he can take here. And this is not a joke any longer, because we don't have this push. So now this is really like kind of inconvenient. How are we going to get that pawn back? And how are we going to, I don't know, let's say, disrupt White's position? I still think that there's probably a lot of ideas here that haven't been discovered yet. My friend Joe, who's an IM, I call him the Weed Master. I mentioned this before, but he highly recommended this book by a Filipino candidate master on the Schliemann. He said he has a lot of ideas. Normally people like diss opening books by players who are, say, not grandmasters or international masters, at least. But I think that's wrong. You know, you just have to judge a book by its cover. I'm just kidding. You just have to judge chess books by, you know, individual cases. I'm sure that a candidate master could write an excellent chess book if he researched it properly, especially with engines doing the analysis. It doesn't matter if you're a grandmaster or not. Yeah, some sort of G4 later on could become an issue, but my question here is very fundamental. Do we really want to take this? Because almost everybody automatically does this exchange. And I think that, you know, it might be interesting. Consider the other options. This move, for example. Kamran Shirazi. That's kind of like when Rockport plays your openings. You know you're playing on sound things. It's the same thing when Shirazi starts showing up in your opening repertoire. That's probably not a good thing. Shirazi likes to do crazy, crazy openings. Maybe bishop c5 is pushing the envelope a little too much. d6 is interesting. Let's take a look at this. Does this transpose to something else? It's think about it. If you reverse engineer it, it's the Steinitz where White played d3 and you answered with f5. How bad can that be? There's this master I knew who used to play the Philidor counter gambit against everything. He would do like d4, f5. This is proven to be unsound for black. It's just unsound. But I mean, White has an optimal position. He has two pawns in the center. It's all open. He didn't play like d3, but if you play d3 and then black plays f5, it's sound for black. Sort of the same argument here. Knight c6, bishop e5, f5. So I'm saying d3 is a passive move. We should be able to get away with something like d6. Pankratov, Pankratov, and Pankratov. Pankratov beat Hare Krishna. He beat Eric Hansen and drew with Mamedov. That's a pretty good score. Another thing is, you see, probably Hare Krishna and Eric Hansen and Mamedov didn't pay enough attention to d6 in their home prep. They're like, no, well, everybody just plays the fashionable line. They're not going to bother to study what happens after d6. This move seems reasonable to me. Like, what if white goes like d4 a tempo down? It's probably playable, but not as good as it would be if you weren't a tempo down. So how much damage can white really do against d6? I would look at this. It seems correct. Knight c3 is possible. You know, it could transpose, because one of the main lines would be like pawn takes pawn, knight f6, knight c3, d6. But again, I'm trying to hold off on this exchange. Why do we have to make that exchange? This is interesting. Of course he can play e takes f. What is white's idea? To play d4 in the next move? On the next move? See, Pankratov did his homework in his own variation here. There you've got an interesting guy, Solskis. He plays the Cochrane Gambit, Asterbate. More sound than Shirazi, though. A6. So Solskis gets credit for playing this in 1998. Oh no. Dude, check this out. Sergei Milton. That's a weird name. Anglo-Russian. How does that possibly work? There's no way that's sound. Check. King e7. Dude, this is ridiculous. There's no way this is sound. Bishop c4, queen e8, bishop g5. Oh my god. Solskis must have wanted to like kill himself after this. This guy's 2300, he went berserk and sacrificed a piece. And Solskis couldn't beat him. Solskis is the guy who plays the Cochrane Gambit for white, so he should understand how to handle a maniac. This has to be winning for black. It's just a matter of like proper defense. You're up a piece. What's the evaluation? Minus 2.7. Oof. Yeah, that's just letting your guard down. That's not okay. White can't do that. Imagine that. I would just be like, fall out of my chair if somebody played that. Knight takes e5. Has anybody else ever fallen out of their chair during a tournament game? Happened to me like 3 years ago. I didn't really fall out of my chair. My chair like collapsed. It was very embarrassing. Stupid cheap office chairs. We're like sitting there in total silence in the Hungarian team championship, second division, in my home match. it was like the openings, and we're just getting started in my chair, just like, you know you've been eating too much when your chair falls apart. Just collapsed on me. It's not your fault, but it's totally embarrassing. All of a sudden you're just going down. Alright, so a6 is cool. I would think white might have the option to play bishop c4. But it's probably not dangerous. You'd have either d5 or bishop takes f5. I am a little concerned about this diagonal. I'd want to make sure. See, like here, look at this line. Bishop c4 novelty. And according to Stockfish, you have to play precisely not to be worse. Like if you play d5, white is better. Your center is too vulnerable. Now it's like Nimzovich. Black has to be precise. Bishop takes f5. Playable for white. So like you've got to know all these sidelines. Hare Krishna Pankratov, Hansen as well. Hare Krishna came first. It's possible that Hansen was prepared for this. Bishop a4 is the best move, apparently. And that's what Hare Krishna played. I play similar positions in the Rossalimo for black. I mean, this sacrifice is in the position still that other guy played. But it's probably not going to work after bishop f5. But black has got to be very careful here. Not to fall too far behind in development. But check out Pankratov's move order. Knight f6. This is also interesting to go here. That's the move order I use in the Rossalimo. So he plays this. Knight f6. d4, best move. Not surprisingly, Hare Krishna, who's a top-level player, handled the opening perfectly. e4. And now he played knight g5. But it's not clear where the knight should go. I would think h4. It's like a King's Gambit idea, where you're holding onto that pawn. Like knight h5 in some lines of the King's Gambit with black. So this has yet to be played. A totally playable, interesting position where the computer thinks that white is slightly better. He goes wrong with knight g5. Bishop f5, d5, b5 forced, bishop e3, and that bishop is not great. But it supports the knight coming in here. So look at this game. 10 moves in, and Pankratov gets a totally good position against 27-25. Castle grabs the bishop. I would think like there's no rush with that. You can take the bishop whenever you want to. Maybe developing with bishop e7. I would prefer. It's always an advantage to maintain flexibility, and your opponent has to think about more stuff. If you play knight takes b3, it's simpler. He has less variations to analyze. He doesn't have to think. Now f3. Black seems to be okay. But this is interesting how a very strong player goes fairly wrong. Good morning, WJ Loof. Analyzing the Schliemann defense here. d5, b5, so this is good. Alright. But it looks like the other variation is critical. Out of curiosity, how bad is bishop takes f5? Spidler Maximenko, 2007. d4. So what's the moral of the story? It seems that a6, bishop a4 benefits black. The argument is this seems to be beneficial. Now let's check out what Eric Hansen did. He took, right? You can't spell for beer? I'll spell for beer. Give me a word. B takes c6, d4, e4. This is a recent game, 2019. And now we would expect knight g5. But Hansen just went back. Bishop f5, knight c3. So white has different options here. It's possible even to play f3, but you have to watch the check on h4. But this is typical. It looks like a Rossalimo. Knight c3, knight f6, f3. Now there's no queen h4 check. And Pankratov has to consider d5. That would radically weaken the pawn structure. Like, I'm not sure I like something like this, like take, knight f1, and then blockading. We did Nimzovich earlier today. Nimzovich was particularly good against the against the Schliemann, by the way. No, that was a Latvian, but don't play the Latvian against Latvians, is my advice. So e takes f3. E takes f3. Castles. Whoa. Dude. Mr. Fancy. And now bishop g4. h3. Alright. I give up. Was this the... What is this? The idiotic chess league? I don't believe it. This must be something from the evil chess site. They're very serious chess league over there. f2 check. Good game. Eric Hansen, was he drunk? Or what? What's up here? Nice game. Is that a blitz game? Is that Bullet? The Bullet World Championship or something? f2 check. It looks like black's okay. Knight f3, normal move, and it's a game. Just seriously, just for amusement, let's see where this is from. Where did it go? Dude, where is it? Hello? Where are you? It's a short game. I inserted it. Why doesn't it say where it's from? You mean there's no tags or anything? That's weird. Site. I guess I have to do site. Eric Hansen Pankratov World Blitz 2019. World Blitz. Does anybody know what the World Blitz is? lichess.org. Wait. What is the World Blitz? Like, this dude didn't do that in an over-the-board Blitz game. There's just no way. This has to be something online. That's ridiculous. Good we have quality games like that to analyze. So it's interesting here. Okay. I thought knight c3 was funny. It's not a good move. He could play f3 right away. Over the board? Where was that? Oh my god. in Moscow. I'm not going to Moscow anymore. My last time there wasn't very fun. F3. C. Castles. So that's an over-the-board blitz game. He hung his queen with F2 check. That's another thing. That was the World Blitz Association. Walter made me subscribe to his magazine at one point too. That was the World Blitz Chess Association. Moscow, Florida. It's a red state. Alright, anyway. Back to... Yeah, 3+2 game. Back to theory, though. I mean, this is an interesting idea, but it's risky, I guess. The moral of the story. I was suggesting d6 here. So the point is that it's kind of risky. Our main variations are f takes e, d takes e, and then either d6 or knight f6. This is the main line. I just want to examine if there's any other possibility. How about this? One last check with knight f6. This is similar. It could actually transpose. All right, we only have like 15 minutes left, guys, so I'm gonna go on to the main line. Just think before you make moves. My point is that this is not automatic. Pawn takes e4. Pawn takes e4. They're gonna rename Mar del Lago Moscow, Florida. Fort Moscow. F takes e4, d takes e4. And now, this is possible even, d6. See, this is the diagonal that bothers me. White can play like bishop c4. If you go back 100 years ago, we probably see like Steinitz or some very strong players that era would love the move bishop c4. That's a common idea in this line. F takes e4, d takes e4. So this is all the rage now. Knight f6. Let's say knight c3. Shirov. Vacher, Legrave. This allows bishop e4. Perhaps that's an inaccuracy. Queen d3 is a move here. What's the number one move? Castle. And then, okay, this is the main line. Black has to decide between bishop c5 and d6. That's the question. I think the biggest question facing... I'm not an expert, although I like experimenting with the Schliemann. Is it better to play d6 or bishop c5? The million-dollar question here. I think the impeach only grows in northern Florida. Pawn to be wild. Closer to the Georgia border. So, castles for white. What do I like better? I mean, I don't mind getting my bishop outside the pawn chain, but the problem is this bishop can get harassed. It also takes time. It can get attacked by the pawn chain, like c3, b4, a4, a5, stuff like this. There are serious issues in some variations. Let's take a look here. We've got just like 10 minutes. We'll pick this line to look at. Now queen d3. The diagonal. Diagonal of death. The state swamp. State-sponsored swamp. Queen d3. Swamp-sponsored state? Now you got me started with the political stuff. We were doing pretty good today. I guess knight d4. Trading pieces is good. WJ actually lived in the swamp for years. And you survived. I think there's some swamp in Pennsylvania too, if I'm not so sure. Swampiness. Swamp is everywhere now. Knight d4. We have swamp in Hungary. Eastern European swamp. Central European. Central sounds better. Knight d4. Alright guys, so trading pieces seems like a good idea, but does black have time? What about taking this pawn? Can white get away with that? Wow. Robin Van Kampen versus Pruisers. So Van Kampen does a lot of videos for Chess24, or at least he used to. He seems like he's pretty theoretically versed. He's playing white here. Well, if this move is good, then the whole variation is sunk. If white could just like take this pawn on e5. I don't believe it. Queen e7. This has to be critical. Two guys who are quite theoretical. This is a game from 8 years ago, though, and there's no games. Yeah, there are games. Here's Villanueva versus Diego Flores. And there's another game from 2018. So does this variation work out for black? Knight back to f3. What do? We're down a pawn with black, and our king is in the middle of the board. Take their bishop. They take. That's good, we got a white scored bishop. But it's still not enough for a pawn and our king in the center of the board. So we got to get something back. You take the pawn back. What the heck happened in the other game? In Van Kampen versus Pruisers? Diego Flores did what? Okay, this is... Commonly what happens in the database is that there's input error. There's no way that Diego Flores like dropped a piece in a tournament game. So that's just not possible. That's a move entry error. That's the one good thing if you buy ChessBase, let's say. They usually do some sort of, paring it down with like errors and stuff. This database on lichess hasn't been checked or anything. You'll find a certain amount of doubles and some games that are just ridiculous. Like the game with Eric Hansen I would just throw away, probably. Where he dropped his queen. Okay, so this is critical. You have to play knight takes bishop. Takes. But I'm curious what Pruisers did. He took with a queen. So the e-file is terrifying here. My first fear is queen e4, knight e4, rook e1, but the bishop's hanging, I guess. Queen e4, knight e4, rook e1. That doesn't work. Oh, that's sweet. So you got bishop f2. He can't do that. Knight d4. Queen d3. Bishop d3. and bishop takes d4. This isn't that bad. I mean, you can see why a decent player might think this is okay. You're not down any material. Rook e1 check, king d8. This is a bit of an issue. What about king f7? See, that's better square. Preferred square. Anyways, it appears that this is critical. Knight f3, knight b5, queen b5, knight e4, and now our king is in the center of the board. We've got 2 games from 2018. It looks okay for black. Someone lost. Knight on bd2. This could be a correspondence game, though. You never know. Black has to be careful. c6. Every move is like engine. Queen a4. And so check this position out. Knight d2. You could play knight takes f2. But I don't really want to lose my dark scored bishop. That's like our best piece. Knight d2, yawn, bishop takes, castles. Black has the bishop pair. Maybe for now. I mean, white could trade off the bishop pair, like queen f7, bishop e4, for example. There's this, though. That sort of messes him up. Sorry, you want to trade the bishop pair off. I'll probably get to trade it. This is okay for black, though. So, I just want to see if there's any real problems with knight d4. He has to take. This is like a main line. I bet this is recommended in more recent Schliemann books. You know, probably this is one of the recommended variations. Rajabov, see, there's all these games. Look, Rajabov, Ivanchuk, Kamsky. It's like the safe way to play with black. Bishop takes. But the fact of the matter is, we're still sitting here with our king on e8 and the diagonal. And you can't get away yet. So you got to find a way to solve the problem. Bishop c4, and now what do? We have to play like d6, queen e7, bishop e6 to trade it off. The score here is great. Lots of good players. And nobody lost with black. Stockfish still thinks that white has a significant advantage. If black can get a safe position for the king, he's fine. But how do you do that? There's one Rajabov game and one Holifman game here, and they're old games from 2011. This might be better. Tomaszewski, Ivanchuk. But these are not new games. That's the newest one from 2016. It's a little concerning that there's no game here from more recently than 2016. I guess the Schliemann went out of fashion again. It was popular from like 2010 to 2015 for a bit there. But it's interesting if you go back a move. Bishop takes d4, knight d2 seems to be more popular. And again, you see between 2008 and 2015 games. I feel like it's gotten past its popularity stage. They became bored with it. Or it's no longer a good surprise weapon. How do we deal with this bishop? Svidler Rajabov. Queen e7. Let's just put that in there. Sorry to flip the board on you guys. Knight f3. Bishop a7. Notice the queen protects this pawn. Knight g5 can be met by rook f8. Someone played bishop g5, which is like, I don't understand what you're doing. It doesn't really threaten anything. It doesn't really threaten anything. You heard it here first. Maybe it's threatening this. Actually. Knight h4, knight f5. Yeah, it's still not a bad move. Black won this game. But let's see what the expert played. Knight h4 right away. Oof. Svidler. Svidler for president. It's a good idea, knight h4. Nice plan. I mean, if you allow knight f5 and you have to take it, you're in trouble. I would seriously consider playing g6. WJ Luke, this is not an easy opening to play for players who are in the early stages of their chess development. You have to be really strong tactically, I think, to play the open positions. Why does the white not have knight f5 here after this? I don't understand. Why can't he play this? Why is this okay for black? e4, is that strong? Just d5. Wow. He can cover up the white square weaknesses, brush it under the rug. The computer thinks that black is better here. Wow. The center is just too imposing. Bishops are not as strong as center. It always depends on the situation. If Wade had like one more move, he'd probably be clearly better. He can't take advantage of his white squares. So Svidler played this. And now, what next? This is a bigger threat now. Guys, I gotta go. We're gonna leave off here with Svidler versus Rajabov from 2008 in the trendy way to play against the Schliemann with d3. One of the main variations. Black managed to win with the move c6 in a game. This is apparently a mistake. Rajabov played the pro move. I mean, that's the plan ultimately. To try to fight for control of this diagonal so that eventually you could castle. But we might be castling queenside, we might be castling kingside, depending on the action ahead here. But Svidler played this like as well as you can play it, I think. It's an interesting game. Check, king b8. Very sharp position now. Black's actually going to try to attack over there, and white's going to try to attack over here on the queen side. b4. Peter played c4, but he gives up the d4 square. You know, I would think that would be like a little risky to lose control of that d4 square. The engine recommends b4. He wants, I mean, the computer wants to open up lines against the black king. b4 is better. Grazie. Alright, Chess Murph. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We're going to be back tomorrow night with subscriber stream. So get your games on. Thanks everybody for your support. Thanks for the gift sub. We have, again, stream 6:30 tomorrow night, subscriber stream. Thank you guys, all of you, for following along. I'll see you then. Bye. Bye. Bye-bye.